people in the Middle Ages, built Snowman to protest, because it was really the only, crayons, paint,
Mhm.
pencils they had. So it was fascinating. And, I love in the book how, they really create a snow person, not a snowman, that represents, the heart and soul of their family.
Welcome to Book Reporter Talks To, where my guest today is Wade Rouse, whose pen name is Viola Shipman. Wade chose his grandmother's name, Viola Shipman, to honor the woman whose heirlooms and family stories inspire his writing, which includes, I believe it's now 7 books and 2 novellas. Am I correct?
It is. That's exactly right.
He's a return guest to the show today, as we're going to talk about his first holiday-themed novel, The Secret of Snow. So welcome, Wade. So nice to have you there. I love your display behind you. This is great.
Thanks, Shell. We've been going all out this week, so it's nice to have a permanent holiday display set up behind us.
And it's really funny because so many people don't have the book behind them, and it's like, okay, what book are we talking about? There it is. It's right there. Oh
We
my
try
gosh.
to subtly push.
So the tagline for The Secret of Snow, I love this, is the forecast is calling for a reluctant homecoming and regrettable decisions with a strong chance of romance. So tell us where that line is and about Sunny Dunes and her plight.
This is, I do like that opening tagline. And, this is, if you're like me, people always ask, if you weren't an author, what would you be doing? And for me, I would be a meteorologist. That's been my fascination since I was little. And I grew up in the Ozarks, and we used to hide from tornadoes in the caves and bluffs. But I think I grew up fascinated with the weather. So I always wanted to, center a character around a meteorologist. And also, a little bit of Ginger Zee's background from Good Morning America. She grew up in West Michigan, just north of where I live here in Saugatuck. And she was fascinated by winter weather and water spouts on the lake. So I did always want to center a character on a meteorologist. But this is, Carol, this follows a 50-year-old meteorologist who lives in Palm Springs, and she knows only sunny days and great weather and 75-degree days. And she finds out she's getting replaced by an artificial intelligent weather girl who will never age, gain weight, or renegotiate her contract. And she has a meltdown. She gets blind drunk and returns to the station, and it goes viral. And she doesn't have a job, and her frenemy from college ends up hiring her back at the place she ran from, a station in northern Michigan, hometown, where, as you know, her, without giving too much away, her younger sister passed away, and she was the queen of the holidays and queen of snow. And so she's been running from her memories her whole life, and returns home for, a second chance at everything.
Absolutely everything. And it really is the second chance, because it's like, I have to go home again. Oh no, this is not good. This is really not good. This is your first winter themed book. I think it's worth first one set there. What inspired you to write finally something where we've got the cold of winter?
Michigan is known for, the longest season is winter, and construction is the big joke around here. And it's interminable at times. And, I grew up in the Ozarks where it would snow and go. And when I moved to Michigan, I moved in 2003, one of the worst winters in history. And I'm not exaggerating. There's a phenomenon here, as people across the US know, called lake effect snow. Mm-hmm. And it just snows constantly. You can get a feet, and within 6 hours, and 20 miles inland, it'll be sunny. And it was the first time I really couldn't control something. And I was writing my humorous memoir at the time, and it forced me actually to slow down, kind of recenter myself, and just appreciate what was going on around me, just be quiet for once. Mm-hmm. And so that always really stayed with me about, if you just slow down to appreciate what's in front of you, maybe you can see the beauty of winter. And that's, that always has kind of stayed with me and resonated with me.
Yeah. And that kind of a setting. I mean, I love the polar vortex that it's a plot line in here, guys. It's the polar vortex. So I'm not going to say anymore, but it's also, I feel like in the weather, we're inventing new words like a bombosphere. Like, well, the other day we had a nor'easter here, but it was maybe could be something else. If the temperature dropped 30 or 40 degrees, I was like, when I was growing up, why did it just rain? Like nothing was ever this size back. And they say it's climate change. So climate change means we all need all new words to make this, like lake effect was always, now we need bombosphere or something,
That's really, I've not talked about this. That's a really interesting point because, in the novel, the main character, she approaches weather scientifically and personally. So it's kind of, a dual joint journey for her. And, that 2014, the polar vortex here in Michigan that hit much of the US, as I write about without giving too much away, but, it created in northern Michigan ice caves that were so stunning and so surreal that they were as big as hotels. You could stand underneath them, you could see the lake glowing below you. They were entities unto their own that the water hits the shore and freezes and then just goes straight up. And they were true miracles that it doesn't occur that often. And I was blessed to see them in person, and it just is life-changing to see what Mother Nature can do. And so that it plays a huge plot point in the novel.
Yeah, I mean, I was learning a lot, and yes, I saw the influence of Ginger Zee. I definitely saw. So the setting is Michigan, where you make your home most of the year, and then you duck out to Palm Springs. Let's get real, when the weather gets frigid. I know you and packed up. So I get the feeling that you really feel for Sunny, that she's got to come back. Like, I mean, I know that you've sometimes been called back to Michigan in the middle of the winter from Palm Springs, and you're like, no, please don't. So am I right and dead on that?
You are, she's really inspired by me in many, many ways, personally. But, weather-wise, yeah, people in Michigan want to punch me in the throat when I say this, especially come February, but we do escape to Palm Springs. And, I've not set a novel at all in Palm Springs, California. And if you've not been there, it is like Michigan, surreal in its otherworldly beauty. And I wanted to juxtapose kind of the desert in winter with Michigan in winter, how completely different they are. But, when you hike in Palm Springs and you go high enough, there's snow at the top of the mountains, and it's still as quiet and still as it is in Michigan. So that I kind of wanted to parallel those two together. But I got thin blood. My shoes do not handle the snow very well at all. So yeah, Sunny's plight was my own.
Sunny's plight. Well, I like the way you talk about the character that Michigan has. I'm going to quote from the book: the wine, the foods, the homes, the water, everything. And then you go on to say that living in Palm Springs is like living in a Sinatra song. I absolutely love that, because I know many of the streets are named after these people, the people from the Rat Pack. And the architecture, the mid-century vibe, the palm trees, the sunshines, martinis by the mountain. Is it like you live two different lives living in those two different places? Because are they really, it seems like they're just so different, and the people are different as a result, because if you can go out every day in sunshine, it's a little bit different than being trapped for most of the winter.
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is like living two different lives, both completely different places, both completely magical in their own right. But, here, I mean, I live in a knotty pine cottage in the woods. You can hear the lake in the background. Out there, we abut the mountain, which is just majestic and incredible, but both totally different places. I mean, Saugatuck here in Michigan is an adorable little resort town, very Cape Coddy with lots of art galleries. I say it's like Courier and Ives come to life. It's just adorable. And Palm Springs has that nostalgic vibe, as you said, and it's very hip and current right now with Coachella and Stagecoach and all the big music festivals they have going on. It's gone through a resurgence, and it is. I feel like you go there and have your friends in your life, and then you return and have your friends and your life here, but both are totally opposite. But for me, they come together. If I'm not able to get outside, if I'm not able to exercise, if I'm not able to get sunshine, as Sunny learns, I used to think in Michigan it was the snow that drove me mad, but it's not. It's not anything to do with that. It's really Michigan becomes a very cloudy
Mhm,
climate,
mhm.
especially on the lake shore for about, come about November 1st, the light bulb turns off. And Palm Springs is all sunshine. And I need that, waking up early. It's nice to have sun and be able to go outside and walk the dogs and go for a run. That makes me whole. So it's really important to me.
Yeah, see, I can do the 2 books a year. You go out there and you write the second one in sunshine. It's really funny you say that because it's in the winter. I definitely get that sad thing because it's that essay because there's no sunshine. I mean, there are days it's just gray, like even here in the East, day after day of grayness. And there's a day, usually the day after a big snowstorm is the most gorgeous day because the sun comes out. But other than that, ooh,
Well, you're exactly right. And, I used to think that was bunk, but moving here, you wake up and it's dark.
Mhm,
It's dark all day. You go to
mhm.
bed and it's dark and it's like Groundhog's Day. And people would think that I would do exceedingly well in that environment writing, but it really gets to me. There's something about light that changes us.
Mhm.
And that's another big point in the book as well.
It is. It absolutely is. Well, I'm going to touch on one first, which is you write in depth about the history of snowmen, which is something I was not aware of. And you go way back. So tell me about the snowman research. Did that happen for this book, or is it one of those things, little factoids you heard in school that stuck with you, or what?
Did both, actually. It was, I remember having written, I remember 2 papers from childhood. One I wrote about a platypus. I have no idea why. And the other was snowmen, because we had to do, I remember a grade school teacher had us do a project. And, we had to kind of make a snowman of our family that kind of
Mhm.
showed what really, she was a wonderful teacher. But my mom wanted to make it a little deeper. So we did a little more research. And that's kind of from that way back. I had done some research and then went back and found it. And, it's fascinating that it was, as I write, it was an expression of almost free art back in the Middle Ages, and a way that people could express their criticism of society and government and politics at the time. There was a great snow at one time, and people in the Middle Ages, built snowman to protest, because it was really the only, crayons, paint,
Mhm.
pencils they had. So it's fascinating. And, I love in the book how, they really create a snow person, not a snowman, that represents, the heart and soul of their family.
Exactly, exactly. It's funny when you're growing up, I remember it always had the 3 parts, and or sometimes we only had enough snow for the bottom one, and they get really grimy as the days go on. It just and like the carrot, like a deer comes out and eats the carrot out here. I mean, it's just really
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Is there really a cherry capital Winterfest? Like, do they really have that up in that area? Or was that a Wade invention?
No, it's huge. So Traverse City, where the book is set, is, if readers are not familiar, it's in an area called Grand Traverse Bay in Leelanau County, northern Michigan. We do this in Michigan up here. And it is, Good Morning America said called it the most beautiful place in the world about 3 years ago. It has Sleeping Bear Dunes, these incredible dunes. It makes you feel like you're in Italy. Um, and it's known as the cherry capital. They planted cherries because the climate is so ideal for them. And now they have tons of vineyards as well. Madonna and her father have a vineyard up there. So, the climate is perfect for it. But, Michigan is known for its festivals. They have the Cherry Festival up there. They have the Yeti Festival next door in Suttons Bay, which is a resort town. They have the Cardboard Sledding Fest, where Sunny does this, but you make your own cardboard sleds and go down the dunes. So yeah, I think it's a way to keep going in the winter and have
Yeah,
some
yeah.
fun.
So, what's your favorite winter sport? Like, if you because okay, let's just set the stage. That Sunny has come from Palm Springs and she has no winter clothes, and she goes out and her mother keeps layering her. Like she thinks she's done. She goes, nope, another layer. Nope, another layer. So, what's your favorite snow sport or winter sport?
And I have to say, that's me moving to Michigan. I am not joking. I would go downtown to everything and people are like, what the hell are you wearing? And I would wear, cute little sweaters, but no coat because I didn't want to cover it, and, suede shoes. And they're like, moron, you've got, get your boots on. Um, it's interesting because I did not do a lot of winter sports before moving up here. And I have to say, one of my favorites is snowshoeing. We have, there are trails all throughout here that go along Lake Michigan that are magical, but I live on 8 acres and neighbors behind have about 40 acres. So there are trails marked right, I can walk out my woods and snowshoe, and it's one of the most beautiful things to do, and can do it for hours on end. So, and it, you know, it's not hard. It's not, people said cross country, not easy. I'm not that coordinated, but snowshoeing is something that you can do, get great exercise in the winter and see the beauty of everything as well. And, you know, the snow here sticks around for a long time.
Well, maybe I'll go out to the house in the winter. I'll go out because you're not there. I'll just go, like, rent your house, and I'll go snowshoeing as long as it's flat, because I don't want to do hills. I want
It's
to do
flat. It is flat, and that's the magic right outside the back door, is you don't have to really go up and down. It is really pretty to do.
Well, I know a lot about that house from one of your memoirs. We'll get into that in a little bit too. So yeah, I know that house. I know exactly what can happen if that house with nature too. So what's your favorite Palm Springs sport? Is it hiking up in the mountains or what?
Yeah, I hike or run every single day, and we are blessed to be about a quarter of a mile from one of the big hiking trails in Palm Springs. So I can just walk outside of our place there and go straight up the hill and start hiking into another world. And it connects to the tallest peak in Palm Springs as well. So you can go short or as long as you want. And then I run, there's these beautiful trails that lead up to what's called Indian Canyons. That's a national park. And I run typically the back roads up there too every day. Running centers me in my writing. So those are my favorite things. And I'm a big napper if I can try to. So I love an afternoon nap outside too.
Outside by the pool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Napping is definitely an exercise. People, it's far like rest, rated than it should be. So do you run first thing in the morning? Do you do your walking or do you do sometime during the day as a break? Like, okay, does the day start with writing, break, go back? What do you do?
It starts with writing. I wake up, mainline coffee like at 6:30 and start writing usually by 7. And I go about 5 hours when I'm in the middle of a book. I like to, that I feel sometimes it takes a while, as you know, to get into a flow. And but with so many books coming out and deadlines being really truncated, I hate counting words and I despise counting pages. So I really like to be way ahead of the curve. So I get up and write, and then that I exercise it usually when I finish. The more physically exhausted I get, the more mentally alert I become. So it really helps me. I kind of go through everything I've written that day. What could happen next? What was wrong with the dialogue? What needs more depth? And I come back and do quick. I don't edit as I go, but I do note every single day of what needs improved. And then the rest of the day is the business of publishing. I call it art. Business meets art, but business, that's the horse that leads the cart. So you
Business
got
is
to
a
do
big
what,
pull these days too. I mean, it's a constant, it's not just 5 minutes, it's all day long. It's responding to people. As we were saying just before we came on air, there was a picture on Facebook of someone where the dog ate the book when it was delivered yesterday. And you need to respond to that with readers. Like, this is kinds of things of you're interacting. Normally you would never have known that years ago. You never would have on top of any of these things that people are saying. And the response time takes a long time.
and it's endless. I don't think people understand the beauty of what's occurred as we can do things like this. And I truly feel I've become more deeply connected to my readers. But in doing so, I owe them a commitment of time too. And I follow up personally with every email and message. And sometimes, and I'm no exaggeration, like with launch week this week of The Secret of Snow, thousands of them. And I try to personally respond and reach out and do as much as we can. And, social media now, you've got Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, 3 accounts and websites. And so messaging comes in constantly across all formats, and you have to stay on top of that. And, I treat readers like friends and family, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There's thousands of things all of us could be doing besides reading an author's book or participating in a book chat or watching my Wine and Words with Wade. They could be doing anything. And for them to be with me, I'm always grateful and humbled.
Yeah, I know. And I answer a lot of reader mail about our newsletters and whatever. And it is that connection with people. And it's hearing the good, the bad. It's hearing, well, oh, I wish this, and hearing their feedback on things. I just like that's so important right now.
It is.
You're also capturing the cutthroat world of television news, where you're either, I love this, number one or nothing. And if you're like, trying to get back, any experience in news? Did you spend any time in news, or is it just something you've watched from afar?
I started as a journalist, and when I was getting my master's degree at Northwestern University, you kind of had to dally in different emphases before you picked what you wanted to major in. And for me, I ended up majoring in magazine publishing and writing because I liked long form writing, obviously, and was fascinated by magazines. But I spent time in TV journalism as well, broadcast journalism. And it's fascinating because one, I noticed even way back in the day that they taught me to lose my Ozarks accent so I could be placed anywhere. Two, women, this was in the 80s, were treated very differently than men were. They had to, no matter what they were doing, they could be hard news broadcasting, they could be going into meteorology, they had to look a certain way. They were told that from the very beginning. And I'm dear friends with some meteorologists and TV anchors, not only in Michigan, but throughout the US. And so many female journalists are held to a different standard than men are. And that's what I really try to write about a lot in this novel. And, it's interesting. I did 2 TV morning shows this week, and I was talking about it with the hosts of the morning shows, and they were all like, and they said so much with so little. But I think and hope that's changing, but it's glacial. And that's a very topical point that I wanted to write about in this book.
Yeah, I've got Katie Couric's book going here right now to read. And it's true. You had to be cute on television. You had to be almost the fault guy, like the humor. You couldn't like do the straight kind of a news. It's very, very interesting to watch how it's evolved, but still hasn't changed. But also I find that network news is interesting because they're really sound bites. Even the weather forecast is little bites of what's going on. It's like this point, like, to the green screen and talking, whatever. And when you really sit and watch the news you realize how scripted everything is and how you're getting one message, one agenda of what's going on, weather or whatever, like just what's ever going on.
And if you remember back in the day when I grew up and you would watch the news, there were significantly fewer stories that were significantly more in depth, just like newspapers. And to me, that's our evolution, but it's also shameful.
It's just what's going on. And it's also, if you're the weather person, I thought that weather people have really huge power. Remember years ago, we were out in Colorado and we were on a trip, and Stormfield, who was our local news person, our weather person, was inside. Stormfield, imagine. And I think his sister's name was Gale Storm or something like that. Gale Field or something. So anyway, we're inside and we're looking at all these meteorological settings, and he's looking. I said, so look at these and tell us what you think is happening outside. Storm sister looks, he goes, it's sunny, blah, blah, blah. We walk outside, total snowstorm. And I sat there and I said to my husband, and we listened to the sky like every night, like just remember. So I always thought the weather person had a lot of power because they could make you carry an umbrella every day. If they say it's going to rain, you're going to carry the umbrella. Or if you don't have the umbrella, it's their fault. It's all their fault. So I always thought that was a very powerful job.
It is. And it's fascinating because, I knew a lot of, I love the name of, it's like Sunny Dunes. It's the best weather person name ever. But, I knew a guy growing up and he was a true scientist and meteorologist, but yet had to be a personality on TV. And he was terrific. I mean, the Ozarks had storms all the time and, tornadoes. And I remember he messed up a huge snowstorm. He thought it would come through and maybe leave an inch or two. And it was a historic snowstorm, and he never lived it down. He actually ended up leaving TV because of it.
I think there was something going on with the guy on the morning show where he said that the morning show is running on Apple TV, and the guy says something about the what is it, the animal that comes out and February, that shows himself.
Groundhogs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and she says something
groundhog.
wrong, politically incorrect, and now he's in like big trouble. And he has to go out and apologize, and that's the whole other thing that's going on right now. So, well, on top of everything else, I know this is a very personal book for you. So let's get serious for a moment and talk a little bit about that, because you have such a beautiful story of really like why you were inspired to be writing this book.
Yeah. I always start every novel with a big question, that I'm wrestling with, or I think readers are wrestling with, and that we want answered. And this one started with a different question. Nancy Thayer sent me a copy of her holiday book a couple of years ago, and the inscription was, "Why haven't you ever written a holiday book? Question mark. Love, Nancy." And I knew why, but no one had ever really asked me, because if you follow us on social media, we love the holidays, put up 7 themed trees and, have bottle brush villages and everything. But, like in the book, Sunny lost her sister when she was young. I lost my brother Todd when I was 13 and he was 17. And, you can imagine how that changed our family's lives, but also the trajectory of our holidays. And, he was our king of Christmas, just like Sunny's sister was, and the king of holidays. And he was the one that every year growing up in the Ozarks would walk into our woods and cut down a pine tree and drag it into the house and put it in a tree stand and drench it in tinsel. And after he passed away, I just didn't think things would be the same again. And I came home the next year after his death, and my mom and grandma had cut a tree down from our woods, dragged it into the house, put it in a tree stand, and drenched it in tinsel. And my mom said, "Why are we trying so hard to forget about your brother? He made us who we are. We should be celebrating and honoring his memory, not trying to forget." So that's why I hadn't written a book like this before, because it is very deeply personal. And also because I wrestled a lot with Nancy's question, because it, came at the start of the pandemic, and now we've lost 700,000 people whose holidays will never be the same. Empty holes in their hearts and empty chairs at the table and, spots under the Christmas tree. And I really wanted to write this book to remind people that we often don't allow ourselves to feel that loss during the holidays. We want 24/7 joy and happiness. And that's just not reality for most of us. And I just wanted The Secret of Snow to be a kind of a big holiday hug, as well as a gentle reminder to reach out to people who need it. And that we're all experiencing something in our lives that is not easy, and it's exaggerated at the holidays. And, in that little town I grew up in, you lose someone and you're no longer defined by who you are, you're defined by that tragedy. I was the kid who lost his brother. My parents were the ones who suffered a tragedy. And after you suffer so much that you just want to be seen again as whole. And it's hard. And I ran, so long from where I grew up. And I really wanted to bring my own personal journey to Sunny's. Why did she run her whole life? Well, it's because you go back and everywhere you turn in small town, you see the person you lost. The ice cream store, at the Christmas tree farm, memories surround you. And so sometimes the only thing you can do is leave to try and reinvent yourself and be who you are. So sorry for the long story, but that is really why I wanted to write this novel, and why I truly hope it resonates with readers.
Yeah, because you were the younger brother. That was how you were defined, and now you're you. And which roles do you take on? Which roles of his do you feel like you need to replace with your parents? What do you feel you need to do? It's just not easy. It's really not easy. And you're right. She's now going back to this place where she's run from and has to confront every single thing that's going on, besides winter and boots.
Yeah, and it's really, I always say this is a love story in all caps. There is a beautiful later in life romance. Shocking, a woman over 50. And love story between friends and siblings, but also a love story between mother and daughter, just like my mom And I had, my mother was the one who, as Sonny's mother says in the novel, she let me go, so I could move on, even though her heart was breaking too. And she was scared, if I have one child left, what could happen? But, that resilience and strength in my mother, I parallel in Sonny's mother as well. So it's a beautiful love story, I think, between a mother and daughter as well.
Yeah, mother and daughter too. And with you're talking about romance, we also think about young protagonists that falling in love. And here we've got these middle-aged characters. Are you someone who collects lines you've heard to put in your writing later? Because there's so many great lines in here of like, oh, dating and whatever.
I am. So I am that person that people no longer invite to dinner parties because and authors, so many do this, I always carry Post-its or a notebook. So if somebody says something that's a great line, I will get it down immediately because I don't want to lose it. And then I keep great track of them. But yeah, I use everything. And people say the greatest lines. I mean, you can't come up with half this stuff on your own.
Yeah. See, Wade's at a dinner party, I'm sure, and then he runs to the bathroom, and they're like, "Why does Wade keep running to the bathroom?" And he's like,
and I force wine on people. I'm like, drink up.
Keep going, folks. Keep going, folks. There's humor woven into the story on so many levels. And does that humor come naturally, or do you write the jokes and those lines in later on, or is it just you?
Naturally. That's, I really did, for all the, emotion in this book, wanted it to be I think it's my funniest novel to date. I think it's my best novel to date, actually. And I do, humor has been how I connect with people. Growing up in the Missouri Ozarks as a gay kid was not easy in the 70s. And humor was the way I brought people to my side, got them to like me, got them not to hit me. But it was also my self-defense mechanism. It's the way that I could use a joke to keep people at arm's distance without getting too close, or to flick aside a bad comment. And it's a lot of what Sunny does in the book too, how she's dealt with things, is to have a very quick sense of humor. Her mother as well. But humor, this, I grew up loving Irma Bombeck. As a boy, I tried to emulate her. I wrote family stories that paralleled her, and she wrote about the minute moments of life in a very funny way. And that's always what I try to bring to life.
I feel like I live in a sitcom here. I know exactly how you feel, because it's just like you come out with stuff and you go, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is just like really too good. It's just really too good. So I take it your favorite character, right, was Sunny. Am I correct? Or was there somebody else?
I love Sunny. I love her. I have to say, the unsung favorite character in the novel is a kid named Icicle, who's kind of the boy Friday at the news station, who has been defined by his much more popular parents and is just invisible in life and his work at the news station. And Sunny sees something in him and he sees something in her, and they truly inspire each other to be better, not only better at their jobs, but better people and better friends. And he's just a kid that you root for. And I've known a lot of people like him in my life that you just know are hurting and are good people, and you just want them to come. They're living, but they're not alive. That's what they each help bring one another alive again.
Yeah, he definitely blossoms as the book goes on. Definitely,
Yeah.
he ends up in a very good place. So who's the trickiest one to write? Who was tough? Was it, I'm betting, okay, I'm going to take a guess. It was her friend that you came back because she's kind of like evil, but I might be wrong.
No, that was because, I think like many of us, we have frenemies and we look at them at a point in our life in a certain light. And as we age and return, or I have done this, I wonder how much of it was me. What was I not being honest about, or how little did I know about myself at the time, that I kind of gave short shrift to this person and just kind of painted them in one color. And that she really was, because I didn't want her to be a stereotype in the book. I wanted her journey to evolve along with Sunny's. She's a woman in a place of power that has to do her job and has to get ratings, which is what TV is all about. But she also has been deeply hurt by this woman she genuinely liked, and never understood why she treated her the way she did. And so there's a lot of human emotion that comes up between the characters. And she was, you're right, Carol, she was the hardest because, and my editor kept going, need a little more, need a little more, need a little more. And then she kind of kept pulling that thread, which I think made that relationship work.
You know, it's so interesting, the role of an editor to say, like, this character is not enough here, or we've got too much of this on the page, pull this back, move this. Yeah, I really felt like she was in a very good place when you finished it up. Was the title always The Secret of Snow?
It was not. The Secrets Behind the Secret of Snow. That was not the title or the cover. The title, my working title, was called The Lake Effect, which is the snow phenomenon, which I thought worked beautifully, with Sunny's journey and back in Michigan and how important it is here. But the sales, marketing, editor, even my agent, Wendy, they thought it was too Michigan specific. But I have to say, they let me choose the new title. I shot about 15 or 20 at them, and I love this title, and I think it's beautiful. And the cover was not that cover. We went through a lot of iterations to get it right.
I love it. I love this about the holiday theme. But what's really interesting? This is a book you can read in January. Like, this is not like it's a holiday themed book, but it's also a winter themed book. And with the lights, I do know that people in the Midwest leave their lights up for a really long time. I remember being at Minneapolis at my friend's house, and the whole town was decorated like Christmas. It was February. And I said to her, like, what the heck? It might have even been March. And I said, what is going on? She says, who wants to go out and take down the lights? She said, we take them down when it gets cooler, it gets warmer.
You put them up the one last good day you get, and then you leave them up because there ain't a good day coming again.
So it's up there. So I like the lights. So people, don't be confused that this is just holiday related. Really, this is the way it looks in February.
It is. And you're exactly right. This does have a long, this book has legs. It's really a winter novel, that goes, and even the timeline in the book stretches through early spring. So.
Well, it's funny, we presented this at a preview, and it was one of the top 5 books that our readers were interested in reading this month. So as soon as we saw that, I think it was number 3. I guess it was my presentation. No, I'm joking. But I think that it was like people are ready for a winter book from you. So, really terrific. So Nancy Peterson is narrating the audio. Did you have a hand in selecting her?
Yes. The beauty of working with my publishers, they now send me kind of their preferences, who they think would be great as narrators for the characters. And as soon as I heard her, she was my number 1 pick. And I think she's terrific. It's funny, you hear a voice in your head when you're writing, how you hope they might sound. And I think she really gets it. It's not an easy job.
No. I did you narrate any of your memoirs? Did you do the narration for any of their?
No, but they're the fingers crossed. They're thinking that my new memoir coming out in May, Magic Season, I'm going to narrate. So hoping that comes to fruition. Yeah.
You have to work on your swallowing. You'll have to work on your swallowing, because it's like all these things you don't think about.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, it's really, really tough. And it's also, you do it in chunks because you can't do it for that long a period of time, because your voice will start more raspy and things like that. So what I was going to ask you is, what's next? Let's start. What's next as you're writing as Viola? What's the next book? A spring book? Summer book? What are we doing?
It's a summer novel called The Edge of Summer. And it is a beautiful story about a woman who loses her mother, and kind of finds the history of who she was through the buttons in her button jar. And it really follows the history of buttons and the button industry, not only in America, but in Michigan, which was one of the nation's leading employers at the turn of the century, with pearl buttons. Horrific conditions, the way they were made, but it's fascinating how they really got into women's sewing baskets and how they were popularized at the time. And it's a story of having too much and too little, of like my grandmother, you never threw a button away.
Right.
If you ripped one off your shirt or your blouse, it was replaced because it was, more inexpensive than going out. You couldn't go buy something. My grandparents couldn't. So hundreds and thousands of buttons, all with beautiful histories. And it's a beautiful novel. It's actually set here in Saugatuck, Michigan, my hometown, and a beautiful journey about a woman really just finding who she is again.
It's interesting because we have buttons in like in a sewing kit downstairs because most clothes these days, look at, are pullover. Like a lot of stuff is pullover. A lot of stuff does not have buttons. It doesn't have those fabulous pieces on it. And it's really interesting when you go back and you look in the button jar and you see how many different things there were and how beautiful they were. And sometimes when I'm knitting, I'm looking for the great button on the sweater because that's going to make it, whether it's on a sleeve or what. And it's very hard to find these things these days. There used to be in the city, there was a whole part in the garment district. There were stores that were just buttons and you could go in and just, but think about what people create these days. Very little is created. It's all mass. It's all this, and it doesn't have that kind of a detail. Whereas you look at it and, it could be a button from a St. John's suit that you saved just because it was just beautiful the way it's put together. We don't see that much anymore. Look at clothing,
And you really summed up a huge foundational piece of the book is how we look at these things and what society is today. And this woman struggling with being a contemporary young woman versus who her mother was, and trying to make decisions in her own life. It's a fascinating, just really two main characters that are fascinating and very different. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
So that's July. And now, okay, is that book completely written? Is that done? Are you still in edit copy or where are you?
Still in edit mode, but completely written.
Okay. And are you working on the next Viola book beyond that? Or are you still like centered on finishing up this one?
Still centered on finishing that up. And I just finished all the edits to the new memoir too. So kind of in like edit mode before I jump into something new, which will be probably in a couple of weeks.
So the new memoir, the memoir is called
Magic Season.
Magic Season. And tell us a little bit about that.
It's a book that really follows my very difficult, beautiful, tumultuous relationship with my Ozarks father. We couldn't be more polar opposite. And the only thing that bonded us was our love of baseball, and especially the St. Louis Cardinals. So it takes place inning by inning over the very last game we ever watched together and goes back and forth through our lives. And brings a lot of baseball history, but it's really a book about me and children seeking acceptance from their parents, sometimes that they know will never come. And yet we yearn for it. We want it. We have to have it to have closure. And sometimes like getting that big hit in a game, it never comes. And it's a lot about being a baseball fan and being filled with hope. The next season is going to be better than this one, and that a miracle can occur in the ninth inning. And but it's a beautiful, it's very similar to my other memoirs, but very different. It's much more bare bones, very just very emotional. My dad was a funny man, and I'm funny, and just how we battled over the years in our relationship. We loved each other deeply. I knew that, but I often wonder how much we liked each other at times. And, and learning to accept sometimes, I compare his love sometimes to, the last green beans in the summer garden. They're kind of dried up and there are not many there, but sometimes that's all that somebody can give. That's all they can grow. And is that okay? Is that enough? So I'm really, it's, I think, one of the best things I've ever written. And I was scared out of my life to write it because I am not a blame memoirist. I'm a writer that seeks to understand through nonfiction. And I wanted to be completely honest, but never disservice my father. And it's was a heart wrenching to write.
Oh, I can't wait to read it because I've read all of your memoirs. I've read all of your memoirs, and a lot of them had humor in them. I still remember you holding onto the side of the SUV. This is ingrained in my brain as the mother was driving when in Confessions of a Prep School Mommy Handler. I mean, there are just so many scenes that you write that I feel like I was there, especially that one. And I have never seen the pickup line of school and not thought about that line of you holding on as the mother drove and you're speaking to her through the window.
Thank you.
You've got those. Oh, please. And what was it? The raccoon in the house, or,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just these vivid scenes that when readers walk away, they stay, like they completely stay of this, what's going on. And like, I see a raccoon and I'm like, no, exactly. Or a squirrel.
Run.
Know where you're hanging out. I know what you're doing,
Yeah, it's three very completely different books. The Secret of Snow, Magic Season, and The Edge of could not all be more different, but I love them all.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you can take on so many different writing challenges because they are, from what you're telling me, completely different stories. And to be able to sit there and move within sort of genres or move between feelings is like huge, because most people, many authors, let's get real, are one-trick ponies. It's one-trick pony happening in a different town, happening here, happening there, and the trick works. But every once in a while, you want a different pony and you don't really get it. And for you, I really feel I walk away. I remember the characters. I remember the characters in the Heirloom Garden. I remember the characters in the Summer Cottage. I remember those people, and to have defined them that much is, I think, a really huge thing to be doing in what's known as lighter fiction, but it's definitely got the depth to it as well.
Thank you. I believe in you can't be fearful in life or writing, but it's really good to be scared sometimes. You have to shake yourself up, because then that you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're scared and unsure, then I truly believe great things come out. And I think every artist artist, no matter what, needs to be scared sometimes. It's terrific for their soul and for their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it pushes you. It absolutely pushes you. Well, you've got quite a year ahead besides talking about this book, which, trust me, people, it's really a winter book. Let's not put this one away like when you put away the Christmas decorations. It's not that at all. And so much to look forward to you from next year. Really, it's going to be it's going to be the year of Wade and Viola. Here we go. And I hope you do narrate, because I think you do a terrific job, because I think you do straight justice to your own work. I really do. I think that you can tell that story with exactly the right emotion in your voice. So,
thanks. Fingers crossed. I'm hopeful, and I hope I get my dad's voice down too.
You just go a little deeper or something like that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us as always. It's always so good to see you. Always.
You too. I adore you, Carol. Thank you.
We have to do this much more often. And to our readers, look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks To.